Well, the last time I checked, this was a Friday. Have I got that right?
Oh,
Yes,
it's
Friday.
Saturday.
Saturday. That's all your fault, Pat.
Yeah,
I was completely straight on what day of the week it was, and then you switched it.
yeah.
Why did you switch it, Pat? Were you doing important business? Important work?
Jude, I was in the houses of the erectors yesterday rather
Wah!
than chatting to you.
You must have heard about this blog site.
Uh, they must have. No, I have to. I was up at a. By the way, there was some months back. Uh, uh, we were invited to. Some people are during. Look, I'll start again. I was invited to make a submission on the constitutional future of the island of Ireland, and sat down and spent about a day writing something because I took it seriously and I believed in it.
Yeah.
And I sent it in, and I thought, as usual, that'll be the last. It's like your letters to the Irish Times. I thought that'll be the last I hear about it. So anyway, subsequently, I got a call, a letter of invite to come to Shannon. Now, they're exploring the whole thing about the constitutional position of the island of Ireland. So I was invited along, and I think there was 15 others or 14 others, maybe. I think it was five, five, and five, because there's 3 sessions of it.
Mm-hmm.
And it was very good, very interesting, and so on. Now, I think, Jude, to answer you seriously, I think what's happening is the Mark Daly. It was the Cahill Senator
Yes.
Mark Daly from Kerry. Mark is a guy who I've known for a wee while, and Mark is one of the few senators that I really sort of from the south who seem interested in really what's happening in the north.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I think he might be the guy that's the catalyst for this. But
Yeah.
here's the point, I'm serious point I'm making. As the politicians, I think, are way, way behind what's happening on the ground. Way behind. The Dáil Éireann, and I said to you before, Jude, and I'm going to repeat it, but when the Taoiseach was told about the findings of the census in Northern Ireland, he was in New York, and he described them as interesting. Right. But Simon Harris was asked, and he says, not for discussion today. Prime time on the 22nd of September, the day the census figures were revealed, did nothing on them. And yet, Colm Eastwood described them as the single most important day, nearly in the foundation of the state. That he said it was a seminal moment for the island of Ireland, and so on. So, Jude, my thesis is that the establishment, the political establishment, the media establishment in the south is running away big time from what's happening north of the border.
But that's there is a consistency there, though. They've always wanted to keep events in the north separate, especially during the time of the Troubles. And now with the rise of Sinn Féin, they even more want to keep events in the north off the table. So
but hold on, Jude, I'm sorry, and I'm going to shut up now. But the electorate north and south aren't saying that.
No, for sure, which would suggest that they are really out of step. So, did you get a feeling, Pat, that there was kind of general support in the Oireachtas, or the people you were talking to yesterday, for the notion of, well, a sort of Republican agenda, is I'm assuming what you were putting to them?
Absolutely not, Jude. John Cushnan was there, Michael McDowell was there, and various people like that. And I got the impression that a lot of it, Jude, was, I don't want to say waffle, because but it's a lot of this stuff is, the nationalists will need to be very generous, and everybody will need to bend over for the unionists and so on. And by the way, we have to be generous and all the rest of it. But Jude, I have always had this one thing. I keep hearing this: 50+1 is not good enough. I've heard Leo Varadkar said, I've heard Michael McDowell said, I've heard various other people said, but 50+1 is good enough for unionism to keep the union, but 50+1 is not good enough for the nationalists. And by the way, the sort of the way it's played out is the nationalists will have to be generous to the unionists, because they're the ones that are losing. Nationals have had to put up with this, and the play is that the Nationals are not being generous. That the Nationals are the people who have had to live in a state for 100 years where they were discriminated, where there was bigotry, where there was sectarianism, where there was jobs, immigration was rife. They lived in the poorest areas, and yet they're the ones not being generous enough.
Yeah, but they might say two wrongs don't make a right.
Of course they don't, Jude. But I'm just saying, why is it being played? They sort of like Shakespearean drama. that the, what do you call it, that the nationalists are the ones who are going to have to reach out. And by the way, I am saying nationalists have to reach out. I just sort of resent the sort of implication that nationalists are not being generous. Nationalists have had to put up, and by the way, nationalists are going to have to be generous. But you know the point I'm making.
Yes, I do, and I completely agree with you. Actually, I mean, it's nonsense. If democracy means anything, you've got to have it 50% plus one.
Yeah,
that's the only way it'll work. For God's sake, in Quebec, didn't the I've forgotten what they're called now, but the Separatist Party lost a referendum by 0.5 percentage point, and they accepted it. Everybody in Quebec accepted it, but apparently different standards apply here.
No, to finish it off, for United Ireland, I think there's going to have to be tolerance, generosity, fairness, equality, and all the rest of it. But I'm sort of saying that it has to come equally from both sides.
Yeah. Well, you might be waiting for a while there.
Yeah.
Now, we shouldn't be here at all. And the reason I was mixed up and we are having this today is the 3ARENA. At least as far as I was concerned, I thought about going to it, but I decided against it. Now, it's been described as a monster meeting.
Yeah.
I saw somebody describe it as being, it would be the biggest convention of people in this century, which actually isn't all that terrific because it's only 20 years old, 22 years old. Is what's happening in the, well, somebody said the arena holds 9,000 people.
Yeah.
Would you think there'll be 9,000 people at it?
Well, a person, I am not certain this, but they were talking that it had nearly sold out yesterday or the day before. So remember, myself and yourself were at the one in the Waterfront Hall in Belfast, and that was a hell. What was there? Many was that?
1,500.
1,500, whatever. Yeah, and I remember it's packed out. Now, if they can get 9,000 into the 3ARENA, dude, they've got a fabulous array of speakers. Now, dude, I remember at the Waterfront Hall. Now, I don't know about you, but I lose the will to live sometimes listening to these people droning on about the technicalities of bicameral or confederation, federation. I'm going, Jesus, go on, you guys go to a back room and work that out. But, see when you've worked out the detail. No, I remember meeting this commercial lawyer when we were selling a business, and I was involved in it. And how many notebooks have you got, and how many typewriters and computers have you got? I was going, Jesus, don't ask me, like... As John Hume says, I don't do small detail.
Well, listen, a big question. Do you see, well, let me preface that with this. Somebody in the Irish Times mentioned the 9,000 in the course of an article on this convention coming up or on today. I think they mentioned that so that if less than 9,000 appeared, they could say, oh, well, it fell well short of the thought. They overestimated the interest in this kind of thing. I have a feeling of that. But the question is this largely what's happening in the 3ARENA today a showpiece? It's got movie stars. Jimmy Nesbitt is going to be making the sort of keynote speech. They've got all sorts of people from all sorts of politicians and ordinary folk, I guess, too. But is it a showpiece? Or is it a beginning, an actual practical beginning, an investigation of what's needed if we're to build towards a united Ireland?
Jude, you're coming on to the point you're just near the point that I tried to make earlier on. This is as a grassroots thing, and it's coming from the ground up, not the top down. And by the way, if 9,000 don't show up today, no, this is not U2 or Take That or the Westlife or whatever the hell. This is a serious debate. Jude, when me and you start talking, I don't expect 50,000 people to be looking on. They're watching two OAPs or whatever you like to call us these days.
The loss is theirs, Pat. The loss is theirs.
But politics is not showbiz. So if they can get 9,000 there, I think it's anywhere near it. I think it's a massive achievement.
Do you think are they like the Alliance Party said they wouldn't go because it was really a celebration of republicanism and nationalism and United Irelandism. Do you think it's that, or do you think it's actually an effort to start to pin down the things that are needed if you're going to build some
Jude,
plan?
Can I turn that back on you? What do you think about what's the Alliance game?
Well, I think the Alliance are trying to sit on the fence for a while longer. because they do have Catholic members and they do have Protestant members. I saw, incidentally, somebody, I forgot her name now, but she wrote an article and she says, I'm a Catholic. My children are being raised atheist because my husband's a Protestant and neither of us are religious.
I've seen that.
So, they were essentially, what she was saying was, it doesn't matter about the religion or religious background of the people in the Alliance Party. I beg to differ. And I think Alliance is now doing very well in terms of votes. So I think they're keen to keep on doing well in votes. And they know that if they come out and say, no, we're opposed to United Ireland, or if they say, the opposite, they feel they might lose some votes. So I think they're just sitting in the fence while longer.
What the Alliance, they try to say, well, if they didn't get an invite, they'd say the organisers are sectarian. And then when they get an invite, they say the event's sectarian. No heads we won, tails you lose type thing.
Yeah. I think, I don't know, we'll need to see the reports on it. But I got the feeling that maybe there would be people putting forward to some extent the kind of things that would need to be looked at or dealt with if we're going to have a decent or a votable for United Ireland in terms of health and education and so on. I don't say they can avoid doing some of that kind of groundwork at a convention like that. And I think that's wonderful. As you know, Pat, I am absolutely starved of people who will come and start putting some facts in place, start building some sort of foundation of what the thing might look like, instead of all this bloody waffle about how things will be better if we have a United Ireland, or things will be better if we stay with the UK. I'd like to see some facts and figures, or plans for what the country might look like if partition was ended.
Well, by the way, this is where I'd get a chance to give a plug. Paul Gosling, and I was on the fringes of that, and I mean very much on the fringes of that.
Yeah.
Paul Gosling is an English guy. I think he's from Birmingham, and he came. He's a financial journalist and so on, and he did a lot of digging and a lot of research, and he put it out there. It's not exactly light reading, but by God, there's some great stuff in it. And Jude, they still throw out this stuff about the grant from London, Westminster, and so on. Yeah. And there's so much of that is absolute waffle. They're in the middle of it. There's absolute bullshit. Some of the stuff, like the royal family and defence, which people in Northern Ireland don't really need at all.
That's right. That's never mentioned. And actually, it is pure deception. That is a part of it. I didn't know that until about 5 years ago. I had no idea that subvention drained off a lot of money, that it comes out. Somebody argued, I think somebody in Sinn Féin, mind you, that it becomes more like 2.5 billion.
Paul, I think, did a lot of. But by the way, Jude, as well, now we're on this, but a quick, the guy who did the economics on the unification of East and West Germany, Hubner, I think it's he said within 5 years, and this was based about 10 years ago on the figures then, that within about 5-10 years, the island of Ireland could be 35 billion a year better off, because right now the duplication of civil servants, police forces, health services, education services, security, and all the rest of it. But he said an Ireland at peace, and tourism and foreign direct investment, all the things, he used the South basically as the sort of I think the template, and he said it could be within about 5 to 10 years could be 35 billion a year better off. That's an island at peace. But anyway, that's a thing.
Well, I think frankly that's a wee bit rosy, but well, maybe there's something in it. The Stephen Collins, actually, in yesterday's or today's Irish Times, has an article, and he does a comparison between the budget in the South and how it was received in the Dáil, and the budget in England. And how it was received. And he says there's, the Irish budget was received, as being sensible by and large, and people, even Sinn Féin, went easy in terms of criticism of it. And that, whereas with Liz Truss, it looks like a disaster, like a nuclear bomb dropped on things, and people are scrabbling around and they don't know what way to turn. So he's saying that the rules have reversed from 2008, the last time we had an economic crunch. He says, remember in Ireland was nearly going to, south of Ireland was going to go down the plug hole practically. And Britain very kindly allowed them to borrow some money.
Very decent of them.
And they asked, of course, they've asked for it back since then. But anyway, that's his point. He also, of course, gets many digs in at Sinn Féin, for example. And he says, that Irish politicians clawed their way out of the mess of 2008. And they didn't get much help from some hurlers on the ditch, which was Sinn Féin. But anyway, he's making that contrast between the way the South is actually prospering, relatively speaking, and the terrible mess that Britain's in at present. You mentioned Michael McDowell, and you mentioned 50+1. He had an article yesterday as well in the Irish Times, and the heading of it was, good God, true Republicans should focus on bringing about a, quotation marks, good United Ireland. And what he means is essentially, he believes there needs to be reconciliation first in the North. I strongly believe that true Republicans should devote their minds, efforts, and actions to bringing about a good United Ireland over time, rather than pursuing some, wait for it, Pat, 50%+1.
He was at that yesterday as well, yeah.
But does he not have a point, Pat? I mean, I hate to give any credit to Michael McDowell, but does he not have a point? Is it not, in fact, a worry? I remember asking a guy in the Department of External Affairs in the South, how would you handle it? How will Unionists live? You can't be a Unionist anymore if the Union's gone.
No, Jude, of course he's got a point. And you and I accept the fact that 50+1 is not the best scenario. Geez, you'd be a moron not to think it. My point about this whole thing is I find it basically deeply, deeply unfair that everybody's saying 50+1 is okay to keep the union, but 50+1 is not good enough for Irish unity. That's the simple point. The realities of 50+1 are not great either way. But what I'm saying is legally 50+1 is where it's at. In any democracy, 50+1. And yet the Nationals who've lived in the northern state for 100 years, 50 years of that under the lash of a Stormont government, which was bigoted, sectarian, and let's repeat all the stuff again. No, the Nationals were, and now it's been portrayed that the Nationals, if they don't accept the fact that maybe we should go for 60%, that they're being ungenerous. And I'm going, there's something inherently unfair that the Nationals people, and the implication is the Unionists, we should be very generous. The National people have had to put up a hell of a lot for a very long time.
Well, that's true.
Why is the generosity going only the one way?
Yeah, well, that's true. That's true. But at the same time, you have to admit that the Unionists in the North have always been a sort of a fortress people. They've always been felt under siege of Derry and all that. And it's clear over the last 50 years, even before the Good Friday Agreement was signed, once the IRA had the ceasefire, things are going in only one way. And again and again and again, we see it from polls, we see it from elections, we see it from the number of seats gained, we see it from a percentage of the vote that parties got. There really is only one ending to this, and it's not a good one for Unionists, not for certainly DUP Unionists. So my view would be this, that Nationalists and Republicans should be working might and main in a practical way to be as conciliatory, as friendly, as open, as welcoming as possible to Unionists, while at the same time making it clear that they are Democrats. That is, Republicans and Nationalists are Democrats and believe that democracy says if you win by one vote, you've won. I don't think you need to confuse.
But here, go back to your point. Right? Let me go back. See, tomorrow morning, this whole thing, we should have a roadmap of where Irish unity will take us. Including everything that we are said we're going to do, we should be able to go to our Unionist brothers and say, look, this is what we're proposing, and it's going to be written in stone. No discrimination, no inequality. You're right. Somebody said the Kilfenora Cayley band treated on a par with our loyalist flute band. Orange, you're allowed. The 12th of July could be a bank holiday for the nation. Everything under the sun. Your rights are guaranteed. You can show your loyalty to the Queen or the King, and whatever. No holds barred, generosity. But wait a minute, see the days of you guys, ruling the roost, that the nationalist people and we as nationalists are totally entitled to have a united Ireland, and but and that's, by the way, let's go back a wee bit. You were chatting there about our friend Stephen Collins. There were some of the things was, I think what he was referring to, Jude, was, remember about 2008, remember the Irish government gave the bank guarantee. Yeah. And the markets went bananas. We were in deep doo-doo from almost the off. And Jude, like there was going to be massive borrowings. There was basically, well, and then what happened is, basically, I think on about 2 weeks ago, Kwasi Kwarteng and Liz Truss did the equivalent in Britain of our bank bailout, because they went for massive borrowings and no tax. And the markets are going, who's going to pay for this? And suddenly there was a run on the pound, and the whole thing just collapsed around it. Yeah. And the claim was they could end up, I think Collins, not often I agree with Collins, but he says bad political decisions can have real life outcomes.
Well, just to bring us back, Pat, I think most of what you say makes a hell of a lot of sense. But let's go back to the question of Unionists in a united Ireland. Like you mentioned, the Loyalist band and the whatever that place was,
Kilfenora
Killy band. Supposing that the Loyalist flute bands have a fair reputation for being sectarian. Yeah. So supposing you had a Loyalist flute band that was, essentially a kick the Pope band.
Yeah.
Would that be embraced within the United Ireland?
Well, I personally wouldn't be embracing it. Jude, I don't think there. If some Killy band was going around singing "F the Queen," I wouldn't be supporting them either.
Yeah. It's a tricky one because, as I say, the central sort of plank of being a unionist is surely the prospect of remaining in the union, or at some point achieving union with Britain. But in fact, if there's a united Ireland, that's gone. So it'll have to be the trappings. Maybe you see that's what's wrong. You see, they object to that. They say, well, we don't want the trappings. We don't want just bands and symbols and national holidays. We want unity with Britain, and we've always wanted it. And
Jude, there's a phrase for me on the Good Friday Agreement that I think a substantive and compared to the rest, and that is parity of esteem.
Yeah,
everybody should be treated the same, and our rights and your rights should be on a par. Both communities in the north should be treated the same, and parity of esteem means that you don't get to lord it over me, and I don't get it to lord it over you. And this sort of thing, that no matter what happens, the unionist community is going to win. That, by the way, what is it? Was it St. Paul? May I be good, but not just yet. Well, the same is about the nationalist people. You might get unity, but not just yet. There's never going to be a good time, and for the Michael McDowells of this world, or the Stephen Collinses. The nationalist people in the north just sort of let the unionists keep going their wee state, and you just keep on going. But Jude, when you look at Jeffrey Donaldson, there's no storming because they haven't got their own way in their protocol, and so on. How much generosity is there?
Yeah. Jim McGuinness is one of the speakers at this thing in the 3ARENA today, TD, and he's also tipped as being a possible future, not Taoiseach, but leader of Fianna Fáil.
Jim O'Callaghan, you mean?
Or Jim O'Callaghan, rather. Sorry, Jim O'Callaghan. He says that United Ireland citizens should not have to declare loyalty to the new state. How do you figure that's okay?
That one would, I don't know what he means, but no, I assume if you're a loyalist if you're a unionist, right here, I'll start again. See, in 2023, there's a poll, and it's agreed that it should be a united Ireland. I don't expect some Samuel Anderson and East Belfast to suddenly say, okay, I am now loyal to the Southern or the Irish nation, that I suddenly stopped being Samuel Anderson, brought up in a loyalist unionist area, that I'm expecting him to suddenly give up his identity and all the rest. And I presume that's what O'Callaghan means, that we don't expect loyalty, that somewhere down the track, if Samuel Anderson wants to say, I quite like this place, and now I'm going to say, like I'm an Irishman and I'm loyal to their state. I presume that's what he's trying to say, or at least I would hope that's what he's trying to say.
Yeah. Actually, it's an interesting reversal of what happened here, because the fact of the matter is that Nationalists and Republicans have always rejected the northern state.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
You would be in a hiding to nothing if you demanded, I guess, loyalty to the new state.
Yeah.
On the other hand, I suppose the only answer to it is you've had to help them to love it. But at the same time, there's so many. I think people underestimate unionist people because they're familiar only with unionist politicians.
Yeah.
And an awful lot of unionist people are very reasonable, businesslike, hard-headed, friendly. Inventive, also a whole lot of things that would in fact improve the mix if Ireland were united.
Yeah.
I think that, their presence in Dublin would be a welcome presence in the Dáil or the Senate or whatever. But here's one. I think it was Jim O'Callaghan who said we could look at the question of having bicamera or multi-camera.
Oh, geez, I knew you were going to use that word.
Okay, I'll leave it at the camera bit. What he's saying was Stormont could continue to exist and pass laws, whereas, all right, the centre of things is Dublin, but you still have a kind of an out centre. Is that okay with you?
Yeah, Jude, as long as it's fair and as long as it's like, Jude, I believe that the people who live on an island as one sort of homogenous group, we live on the island of Ireland. The people who live on the island of Ireland should judge and rule and make decisions based on what is best for the people who live here. We shouldn't have somebody who lives on another island making decisions for us, because, and I don't care whether there's an outreach centre in Belfast or one in Cork or one wherever. I don't give a monkey's. As long as the people on this island, tourism, Belfast, you're getting this, Cork, you're getting this, Galway, you're getting this, Donegal, you're getting this. As long as it's on a par and everybody's got a say in it, and and everybody's got their the rightful benefit from it.
Yeah, I agree with you in that, Pat. I would, but there's one circumstance under which I would not be at all in favour of maintaining Stormont, and that is if you were to maintain Stormont and then simply say, oh well, Dublin's sort of the centre, but we.
No, Jude, I'm not saying that.
No, I know you're not. I know you're not, Pat. No, but I would be in favour of that. If Stormont for Ulster, somewhere for Connacht, somewhere for Munster, and then presumably the Dáil for Leinster. If it was spread around the country, I just really don't like singling out the Stormont and saying you're going to get this special treatment because you poor guys have had to come in and it's difficult for you, etc. I'd totally be opposed to that, but I'd be pretty much in favour of having. What wasn't it? Wasn't that what they called a New Ireland at one stage? Somebody produced a document way back where they said that before parliamentary. I'm
not sure about that, but it was a sort of confederation. And Jude, there's nothing wrong with that. Well, maybe the expense of it might be a bit heavy duty for a small.
Well, it would bring government closer to the people on the same ground.
There's nothing wrong with that, Jude. I'm all in favour. In fact, the more local democracy, the better.
Yeah, it's very exciting times we're living in, but it's also depressing because there's people who are intent on putting a spoke in the wheels and not allow history to go the direction it's obviously going.
Yeah.
You have every bloody day goes by. You have somebody in the Irish Times, usually Stephen Collins or Michael McDowell, telling us what things we'll all have to do and what a disaster it will be if we ever aboard our poll. Really, it's sort of outrageous that. Like you say, you would be outraged by having. I've forgotten what you said. The last thing you said you're going to be outraged by, but
I'm outraged regularly.
Yeah, well, I feel outraged by these constant commentators.
Jude, I'm going to repeat myself again. But hey, Jude, the electorate seems to have totally ignored these people.
Yeah,
in growing numbers.
Yeah. Oh, that's it. Which reminds me of another thing. There's an article was in this week. Which it actually reminds me of a very rude joke, which was that if your granny had certain equipment, she would be your granda. This story was about if Sinn Féin got into power and failed to deliver. If Owen O'Brien's plan for housing was to wither on the vine at the first contact with reality, what would happen? And they said, oh, then there'd be a swing to the right. So, they're warning us about a situation that hasn't even happened. I mean, one of the intermediary
Jude, they're
stages.
struggling, aren't they? Yeah. No, in fairness, there has been a wee bit of, sure, look, you see, what's been happening seems to be across the world right now. Every time a sort of a left-wing government goes in and doesn't deliver, along comes some populist right-wing bollocks, like Trump. Trump's the best example. I keep coming back to him. You right, Jude. You go back to the era of heavy-duty politicians right across the world, and then you suddenly arrive at Trump, a liar, a cheat, a con man, everything, and a bombast. I am the best at this. I am the best at that. And if you watch all the Hollywood movies, all the Gary Coopers, American icons are usually heroic, steadfast, people of integrity. And here's this clown, and everybody knows he's a clown, and yet almost 50% of the people vote for him. And you sort of go, right, then you go Orban in Hungary, Bolsonaro in Brazil. You can keep going. Adolf Hitler, Mussolini. Why do people basically, let's go back to Trump. Trump told people in parts of America that were left behind, look, even though I'm a billionaire and you're a blue-collar worker in a rust bucket state, I'll look after you. And they bought it.
Well, to bring it back to here, or to the south of Ireland, they said that warning was if a Sinn Féin government was in place and it couldn't deliver on its promises, you'd probably have a lurch to the right. Yeah, but why would nobody say, well, if you have the government that we've had for the last, or you've had for the last 5 years or 4 years, well, 2-3 years now, where people are homeless, people can't get a house, where there's a rotten health system, why was there not somebody from the right jumping up and becoming a dictator at that point? It's only if Sinn Féin get into a government and feel
well, you see, Sinn Féin will be considered the radical left. And by the way, Jude, I think Sinn Féin are, going to be hoisting their own petard, to use that expression. Jude, they're coming. There's almost 1 million people on hospital waiting lists of various kinds. There was people. I was on Highland Radio the other day. A girl. Now, Jude, I can't stand over this, but there's a girl somewhere down south from Donegal who is in a room, and she was told by her landlord the last day that he is her double bed. There's another person coming in to share her double bed for 25 quid a night. No, Jude, it's on the Highland radios that this is the girl told them. This is the sort of things going on. There's a basement somewhere in Letterkenny or somewhere where apparently Ukrainians are living. Jude, that's all a reality. Now, I don't know how you jump from that to a right-wing dictatorship, but one of the things I think that writer was on about was said when way back in about the 1930s, General Owen O'Duffy came to power after the Fianna Fáil and all that, and he he went for the old right wing, sneered at the effeminacy of Irish youth, about followed all the strict things about smoking and drinking and all the rest. And what the thing was, Duffy was a homosexual and he was an alcoholic. But so
so do as I say, not do as I do.
But see this stuff. I think what somebody said, if Sinn Féin fail, the danger will be that the reaction against the radical left will be a switch to the radical right. These guys have had their day, and look, they're a disaster. Let's go for the hard man.
Well, I'm not sure that when Sinn Féin get into government, they will be a radical left.
I don't think so.
I think Sinn Féin would be very careful. I mean, there was a time when Sinn Féin stood for a socialist, all Ireland, 32 country republic. You don't find the word socialism used a great deal in Sinn Féin documents.
I remember Martin McGuinness. There was I was having a conversation one day, and he says, "We were looking for a socialist 32 county republic," and suddenly some years later, I remember hearing somebody chatting, and the socialist, but it disappeared. And Martin said, "Pat, see tomorrow morning." I'm not sure I'd vote for United Ireland unless there were certain things changed. Now, he never told me what the certain things that had changed were, so I can't put words in his mouth.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, it seems that there's a lot of things that even the, what would you say, the people in the north, the leaders of wanted in the south changed, but one of them was socialism, but that seems to have gone.
Yeah. Well, I think maybe that's the price they've had to pay for pulling in the middle class vote. I mean, it's quite clear that they were getting the middle class vote, but then you see they're getting a middle class vote because the middle class people are being impacted by the cost of living and homelessness and all sorts of things like that, health service. So really, I think this is a straw man. They're not content. They're unable to look at the plans that Sinn Féin are putting forward and say, are they good or are they bad? They say, oh, well, you try them and you'll see. But if you feel you're really for it, you're going to put us all in deep crap. I just think it's an odd way of criticizing someone to say, if this happens, then the next bad thing will happen. I mean, maybe Sinn Féin could go into government. Maybe they might fail comparatively, which is the way that Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil, they certainly have failed. And there might not be no right-wing slump in Ireland. It might well be the case. And after all, Joe Biden did come back after Trump. So it really irritates me when they can't get them one way, they go after them another way.
Dude, there's a guy on Drive Time, that's the RT program, evening program, and he was a lecturer at Trinity College.
Yeah,
and he's saying, he gets a contract for 9 months of the year. He doesn't get paid for the summer, so he must be some sort of I don't know. But he was telling the story that he quite literally can't get a place to live. I can't afford to live in Dublin, and he's a lecturer at Trinity College. And you're sort of going, if a lecturer at Trinity College can't afford it, he's actually, I think, some from Antrim. He says he's going to he's living in a hostel, and so on. Jude, that's, by the way, Jude, this is a total diversion and a total digression. I was in Dublin yesterday, and me and my dear missus, and we decided to take the bus up and the bus down, because getting parking in Dublin's a disaster. Anyway, we walked a good bit yesterday. Jude, Dublin has gone, the Tower of Babel. Spot the sort of the native. I heard Polish people, Latvian people of color, Jude, and you can. We went into a couple of places, and I remember even one of the bathrooms. The woman was cleaning there. She couldn't. She was definitely Eastern European. We stopped off in a shop on the way up to Monaghan. Lovely woman, and she was definitely Eastern European as well. Jude, we have become a very different society to the one I was born into.
Are you pleased with that?
I actually like it.
Yeah, I feel exactly the same. Pat, unfortunately, we have exactly 1 minute left. Now, having established that I can't tell Freddie from Saturday, and I can't tell Jim McGuinness from Jim McCallum, I'll leave. I was
wondering what the manager of the Donegal G8 team was doing up with that.
I'll leave the final farewells in your mouth. Say something to the people. Tell your people what they should do.
We should all vote for an Ireland that's fair to everyone and equal for everyone.
That's a big ask. Okay, Pat.
All the best.
Good talking to you.
Yeah,
and we will assemble.
We'll meet again.
Okay.
See.
Right.
Okay,
bye. Thank you.